Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really important piece of Indian law. It's one you hear about in the news all the time, but not many people know what it actually does. We're talking about the Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act, or as it's more commonly known, the Atrocities Act. It was created specifically to protect these historically disadvantaged communities. Okay, so let's get right to the big question. Why did this law even need to exist? Weren't there other laws already in place? What was happening that required such a specific, special act? Well, the answer is laid out right there in the law's opening lines. It's got a crystal clear three-part mission. First, to prevent these specific crimes from happening. Second, to make sure offenders are actually prosecuted. And third, and this is so important, to provide real relief and support for the victims. So, what does the law mean by an atrocity? You might think it's a broad term, but the act is incredibly specific. It's not just one thing, it's a whole detailed list of offenses. Let's break down the main categories it covers. First up, you have acts that are all about destroying someone's dignity. And the law gets really specific here, making it a crime to do things meant to humiliate and degrade someone, like forcing them to eat something inedible, parading them naked, or forcibly shaving their head or mustache. It's about punishing the intent to dehumanize. Then you've got what you could call economic and social weapons. The act makes it an atrocity to wrongfully take someone's land, force them into bonded labor, or hit them with a social or economic boycott. This is huge, right? It recognizes that oppression isn't always physical. It can hit you in your wallet in your community. And the act also protects basic civil rights. It becomes an atrocity to stop someone from voting, to block them from using a public well or water source, or to keep them from using a public road or entering a temple. This is all about safeguarding their fundamental right to be an equal part of society. So we know what counts as an atrocity, but how does the law make sure justice actually gets served? Well, it doesn't just rely on the standard court system. It sets up a unique process, one that's built for speed and, importantly, for accountability. When you look at these steps, you can see the whole system is designed to be fast. It's all about cutting through the red tape that can cause massive delays. A complaint has to be filed immediately, no preliminary questions asked. The investigation has to be wrapped up in 60 days, and the case goes straight to a dedicated special court. And here's something really important. The act doesn't just go after the perpetrators. It also holds public officials accountable. Any public servant who is not from an SC or ST community and deliberately neglects their duties, like, say, refusing to register a complaint, can face jail time of 6 months to a year. So there's a real penalty for looking the other way. But, what's really fascinating about this law is that it's not just about punishing the bad guys. It is deeply focused on protecting the people at the very center of these cases, the victims and the witnesses. Let's dig into the support system it actually builds for them. So, check this out. Section 15A is basically a Bill of Rights for victims. And just look at this list. It goes way beyond the basics. For example, they have a right to be heard in all court proceedings, even when the accused is asking for bail. The state has to help them with travel and living expenses during the trial. It even allows their names to be hidden in court records for safety. The whole idea is to treat victims not just as evidence, but as people who need to be fully supported and protected. So what's the clock on all of this? How fast is it supposed to happen? Well, the law sets a really ambitious target. 2 months. The goal is to get the trial finished whenever possible within just 2 months after the charges are filed. This isn't about cases dragging on for years and years. The whole point is swift justice. Okay, so to make sure all of this actually works, the Act has some pretty unique powers. These are the things that give it real legal teeth and set it apart from other laws. And this is a big one. It's absolutely crucial. Under Section 18 of this Act, if you're accused of an atrocity, you cannot apply for something called anticipatory bail to try and avoid getting arrested. So, you might be wondering, what exactly is anticipatory bail? Well, in normal criminal cases, it's a legal tool that lets someone get bail before they're even arrested. By taking that option off the table here, the law is trying to make sure the accused can't use that freedom to, say, scare victims or mess with evidence. It lets the investigation get going without that interference. And this might just be the Act's biggest superpower. Section 20 says flat out that this law overrides any other law, any custom, any tradition that gets in its way. Bottom line, when it comes to stopping atrocities, this act gets the final say. So what we have here is a really powerful, really specific legal shield created to protect some of India's most vulnerable communities. And that leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on. How does a society balance targeted protections like this with the fundamental idea that all rights should be universal for every single citizen? Some to think about.